What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the 2019 NHL. Fuck. God damn it. Fuck. I should have practiced this. God damn it. All right. All right, one more time. Stu, cut that. We won't have any more editing issues. All right. 3, 2, 1. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the 2019 NHL Trade Deadline Extravaganza edition of the Go With The Flow NHL podcast. Nick Phillips, joined by my lineys Dan Maritz and Kevin Bartman. Fellas, how we doing this Monday evening as we're recording here? We're fresh off the deadline. How you doing? Maybe we'll just jump right into it soon here, boys.
Yeah, pretty great. Exciting stuff going on. Exciting day. I'm excited to get into it with you guys.
I'm not going to lie. My expectations were a little bit higher. I was a little disappointed, but right towards the end of the deadline, the last 80 minutes or so was pretty action-packed. So, yeah, pretty excited to jump into it.
Yeah, as they say, right, deadline spur action. So a couple trades obviously happened, before, today, the 25th. We don't know if we're going to be able to release it Monday evening or Tuesday. So sorry if our dates are incorrect as you're listening to this. But, obviously Columbus made a couple moves before Monday with Ryan Dzingel and, of course, Matt Duchene. And then Charlie Coyle going to Boston for Ryan Donato, Brandon Montour going from Anaheim to Buffalo. But I think we're going to start off by talking about the Columbus Blue Jackets. Jarmo Kekalainen had a hell of a day, hell of a week, I guess. Hangs on to Panarin and Bobrovsky for one last run. Seems like their departures are each imminent, but they didn't get a ridiculous offer that made them willing to part with them. But gets his hands on Matt Duchene, Ryan Dzingel, as aforementioned, and also picked up Blockade, Keith Kincaid, as well as Matt McQuaid from the Rangers. So pretty active day. And I think as Kevin will talk about, not a whole lot of draft picks for them coming up for the draft in Vancouver here coming up. Or is it Dallas this year? Shit. Is it? I think it's Vancouver. Whatever.
It's Vancouver. So, this – I don't want to – it doesn't really seem like the Jackets are going all in, but it kind of does because they had by far the most active trade deadline, picking up 4 significant pieces, 2 being really significant. But in the process, and this is in past trades that they've made as well, they have relinquished exactly over half their draft picks for the next 2 years. So in 2019 and 2020, they have 7 draft picks total, 6 of them being theirs, 1 being one they acquired from Cal. But it's a big gamble because I don't really think they're talented enough to be a cup contending team. They are a good team, don't get me wrong, and they were pretty tough out last year against Washington. They played really well the first 2 games and then just kind of the rest of the way. But it's going to be a rude awakening once they inevitably get knocked out because you got to think they're going to lose Panarin, they're going to lose Sergei Bobrovsky. And then once that happens, Matt Duchene is going to be like, all right, I don't want to be here anymore. So they're going to lose Matt Duchene, Ryan Dzingel, and then, the dominoes fall. So this is kind of, the last big chance I think they could have for a while to make it because lost quite a bit of draft capital and they're going to lose probably their, 4 of their, best players. So big gamble here by Jarmo.
Yeah, good pickups with Dzingel and Duchene. By the way, Phillips, it's Adam McQuaid, not Matt McQuaid. Probably should have thrown that in right at the beginning, but, fuck me. Sorry.
I mixed him up with the Michigan State basketball player, so yeah, I basketball. So.
Yeah, whatever.
For amateurs, you fuck up. So
yeah, it happens. Even the pros fuck up. So but yeah, some good pickups. Kev, like you said, not dishing out Panarin and Bobrovsky, especially after the awkward or funny, whatever you want to call it, press conference with Torts saying that Panarin was shitting his pants. Some people were thinking that was a front. They were just trying to keep him healthy so they could move him at the deadline. Turns out that he maybe, in fact, was pooping himself and throwing up everywhere. But, if playoffs ended If playoffs started today, they'd be playing Washington again. Washington having home ice advantage. So that would be kind of an interesting first round rematch. I think they have the potential. I certainly think they have the potential to win a series. And God, that city, I'm sure, is ready to win a series. They've been to the playoffs, 2-3 times in the last, I don't know, 5-10 years, whatever it is. And they always play tough teams. They played Pittsburgh, who I think eventually went on to win a cup in 2016. They played, obviously, the Caps last year. So I think they definitely have the potential to win a series, but I don't think, like you said, I don't really see them getting past the second round. And even if they do, I think that might be kind of where the magic ends, kind of like in Edmonton a couple of years ago where they beat, San Jose, and then they lost to Anaheim or something like that. So yeah, just kind of interesting that they decided to keep the 2 Russians on board. It'll be interesting to see what they do in the playoffs with the new acquisitions plus them. That'll be a fun team to watch. I'm excited to see what Duchesne brings and what line he'll be on and all that stuff. So,
when I saw them get Matt Duchesne, my immediate thought was, wow, like they're going to trade Panarin now because you have Duchesne and it's like, okay, well you have. You got the guy that you're going to try to lock up long term, and because that's a guy who's maybe more likely to sign a contract extension there than Panarin. And then all of a sudden they go and get Kincaid today, and it's like, oh well, in theory, I mean, not that Kincaid's like a bona fide number 1, but you're bringing in a new goalie. You still have Korpisalo there, so it's a very bizarre situation because 2 of your best players, your number 1 goalie, your best forward, are probably leaving. You bring in Dzingel, who's having a nice year. Duchesne, who's obviously a pretty high caliber player. And, getting Duchesne and Kincaid made it seem like to me that, oh, wow, they might actually be entertaining offers seriously for Panarin and Bobrovsky. But I'm kind of with Kevin here that I think this is going to blow up in their face. Obviously they have a really talented roster, and that's a really tough division. And Washington's not going to be an easy opponent. And they've got a very good team this year. I mean, they've got a lot of depth, but Jackets fans and NHL fans shouldn't get used to it because there's no way they're going to be able to keep the band together just with the salary cap constraints and what guys are going to be demanding and, a possible domino effect where if Bobrovsky leaves, that's going to encourage Panarin to leave. And if those 2 are gone, then maybe a couple of their other UFAs don't sign. So a really interesting move. I think they're really good, but they could easily get bounced here in the first round. And I still don't think they're on a level of, Tampa, obviously, and Toronto and Boston and some of these other teams. So if I were them, I would have just been like, you know what, I've got Duchesne. Let's try to lock him up like what Vegas did with Stone, and then just trade Panarin because, they could easily not make the playoffs, but they probably will because they're really talented. But I really thought when they got Duchesne that it was just like, oh, now they're going to be comfortable enough to trade Panarin because you could get a really nice haul for Panarin, and then if you don't win the cup this year, which I don't think they are, you're going to let him walk for nothing. Yeah, maybe you could trade his rights for a 5th, 6th round pick before July 1st, but that's a very small consolation versus what you could have gotten today.
Yeah, and the other thing that worries me is, we've talked ad nauseum, time and time again that you need to have a hot goaltender going into the Stanley Cup playoffs. And while we've seen Bobrovsky, what he can do, he's a Vezina caliber goalie. He's having one of the worst years of his career. He is playing absolutely terribly. So maybe that was, part of the thought process into getting Kincaid, but they're going to absolutely need to get Bobrovsky back to where he needs to be. So.
Yeah, boys, another team that was pretty active today was Nashville, kind of in the 11th hour. They swung a couple trades there within the last 15 minutes or so before the deadline. I think Hoyle absolutely fleeced Paul Fenton, in my opinion, with Granlund for Fiala. I think Granlund's had over 60 points the previous 2 seasons. He's having another pretty solid offensive year. And, Fiala's never really put together a big season yet. He's, I think, 3 or 4 years younger. I think Granlund's 26 and he's 22. But thought that was a big trade. And then trading Ryan Hartman in a 4th. And I think the 4th can become a 3rd, depending on how far Nashville goes in the postseason. But adding Wayne Simmons, right? Adding a guy, reuniting him with Peter Laviolette. And, he's probably a nice guy to have on your second power play unit. cliche, goes to the tough areas, grit, blah, 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 toughness, sandpaper, all that good stuff. So Nashville, I think, became better today. Don't know what you guys think of the Nashville trades. And obviously Minnesota's been active, one of their trade partners today, with trading Niederreiter a couple weeks ago for Victor Rask, trading Charlie Coyle to Boston for Ryan Donato. Now said for first couple games in a Minnesota uniform have been pretty solid. And then obviously today getting Fiala back for Granlund. But I don't know if anyone's got any thoughts on Nashville or Minnesota, who are pretty active. I think Minnesota got younger, but I don't think they're quite as good offensively. But I think Nashville had a hell of a day.
Yeah, I can tackle it from kind of the Minnesota standpoint. It's funny because a lot of people are just sort of accepting that they need to rebuild the team, and the team that they have currently is just not going to get the job done. This team, largely up until the last week or so, has been around for a while. And as we know, first round exits, maybe they win a series and then they lose to another Central Division team. But I think it's kind of funny. Everybody's, like I said, sort of is accepting the selling, but they're a little upset with who they're selling. I know some people were upset with Coyle, although that one made a lot of sense because Coyle wasn't doing much of anything. I know people are really upset about Granlund because Granlund's been, a pretty solid guy for them. So it's just kind of interesting to me to see that I guess you could say the winds of change are here, but now that they're here, some, not all Wild fans are sort of up in arms about who they're getting rid of. And when you're selling, you can't really, you obviously have some control over who's staying and who's going. But really they need to just kind of rebuild the whole team. So this is another step. Fiala is not a bad player, as you said, Nick. I sort of prefer Granlund over Fiala, but I might be eating my words sooner or later. But yeah, and then on the Nashville side, certainly a lot better. Wayne Simmons is a guy that I've always liked the way he plays. He plays kind of that old school, tough, doesn't give a shit, will get up in your face and beat the crap out of you. And he'll also beat the crap out of you on the scoreboard, bearing rebounds on the power play, stuff like that. So Nashville, definitely bolstered their roster. As far as Hartman goes, I think Hartman's good. I miss him being in a Hawks uniform. But that'll be a nice change for him in Philly. I think he'll kind of help them out as well, kind of the same way that Simmons will help out Nashville. But yeah, shit, Nashville's looking fucking ready to go, boys. I'm a little nervous.
Yeah, you guys pretty much covered everything I would have said about these trades. I do like the Granlund trade for Nashville because I think he's a more complete player. I think Kevin Fiala, while he's pretty talented player, I think he benefited just a little bit from the guys he was with, his line mates in Nashville. So I think Granlund can step in and be a little more complete player, play a little bit better of a 200-foot game for them. And obviously adding Wayne Simmons does a little bit of the same, all those cliches, tough guy, gritty, blah, blah, blah. But my biggest takeaway was a little bit of a moral victory Stan got from the Ryan Hartman trade. It seems like we kind of won in Nashville. David Poyle kind of punted on Ryan Hartman because he was kind of underwhelming in his time there. So, while I think on our end, Victor Edgecell hasn't been, too much too much to celebrate. So that's what I got out of that one.
Yeah, from a Hawks perspective, hey, why not? Always good when Stan can somehow beat Poyle in a trade. Getting Kurashev, who had a really good World Junior. I think he had a goal per game for the Swiss team. And then, Edgel's kind of been a disappointment, but the first-round pick they got out of that trade, Nicholas Beaudin, he's a pretty offensive-minded defenseman who's having a nice year in the queue, I believe. So nice job there. But, yeah, I think Granlund's just a more complete player, both ends of the ice. Definitely has more offensive output. Fiala's probably like a little bit of a faster skater, but like Granlund's I think he's a really good player. I mean, he's had over 60 points 2 straight years, and he's having another good year this year. And like I said earlier, I don't think Fiala's really proven much for like an 82-game season. But yeah, I mean, Granlund and Simmons those are some nice secondary scoring options to have, to go with, the Forsbergs of the world and the Johanssons and stuff that they got up front. So, yeah, I mean, Nashville again, it's you've got that defense, with the big four guys we know about with Yossi, Ekholm, Subban, and oh geez, I'm losing. Ellis is the other one, and then they've got a pretty dynamic forward group now. It's just going to be up to Rinne to try to avenge some playoff woes he's had. He's kind of crumbled at a couple tough spots. So yeah, it's all about goaltending again for Nashville. They're going to be they're going to hope Rinne is going to be able to carry them. So yeah, sticking in the Central Division, I would say the second biggest trade that happened on right before Monday's deadline has to be Kevin Hayes going to Winnipeg. His first trades that happened on Monday. So Winnipeg sent over Brendan Lemieux in a first-round pick, and then a conditional fourth if Winnipeg goes all the way and wins the Cup to the Rangers for Kevin Hayes. Big center, expiring UFA. He's been in New York for 5 years, pretty solid player, but obviously is owed a payday. And Winnipeg goes and makes a move. They were obviously involved with the Mark Stone talks, but we'll talk about Stone here in a few. But Winnipeg kind of just saw an opportunity to get a guy at a lesser price than Stone, and Cheveldayoff pulled the trigger, and I think he's a pretty damn good fit there. They needed maybe a little more help up the middle. I mean, now you've got Scheifele, Hayes, and Little as your first three centers. That's pretty fucking good. So I give props to Chevy for making an aggressive move, and I think the Rangers did pretty good here, but I also don't think it was a bad move from Winnipeg for making a cup run. I think it was a solid move.
Yeah, definitely a solid move. I think when you think of playoff teams, you think of the teams that go deep usually have that good second line center, and Winnipeg's got three good centers. So Kevin Hayes, he'll definitely help Winnipeg out. I can see them going to the Western Conference Final again. Not that I want to see them do that, but. Yeah, I mean, just another team in the Central that's gotten really freaking good, and is looking, is looking ready to go come playoff time. A little depressing. I don't know about you guys, but I watched Spit and Ticklets has a YouTube channel out, and they gave a tour of his New York apartment, and here we are. I just watched it like 2 days ago, and here we are now. He's got to move out of it. It was like a really, really nice kind of apartment. So now he's got to go to Winnipeg. What a change in scenery in terms of cities. Yikes. But Winnipeg's looking really good. That'll be another, I would assume, Nashville and Winnipeg will meet each other in the playoffs, and it'll just be another, absolute fucking war, which will be really entertaining to watch. Cause both those teams look, I would say probably the strongest. Those would be like my 1-2 to be the cup contender from the West would be one of those two. So yeah, Kev, what are your thoughts?
So yeah, I think I kind of liked how Winnipeg approached the deadline. They didn't really overthink it and try to do too much. I think Kevin Hayes is a nice addition. Not necessarily a depth signing because he produces at a pretty solid clip. And to your point, Dan, about how he has to move from New York, like he couldn't have gone to probably a better situation though. He's not going to have super high expectations. He gets to play competitive hockey, gets to play for a Stanley Cup most likely. Yeah, so. The main thing is just like they were in the Mark Stone conversations. They're pretty much in the conversation for every good winger. So I really felt blah blah. So not giving up too much and sort of strapping themselves in the future potentially is probably for the best because they're pretty set now.
Yeah, and he's going to get fucking paid, boys. If Winnipeg goes on a deep run like everyone thinks they're very capable of, and he performs offensively, he's going to. What a time to be a UFA, right? You can go to Winnipeg, go on a deep run, and be a second line, third line guy, and just put up big numbers. And everyone likes a big center who can score. So he's got a huge opportunity to get a big payday here.
Come home to the Blackhawks.
Hell yeah, bro! We miss you.
Yeah, well, we can talk about Stan sitting on his hands later. Obviously now they can't get Stone, and Duchesne's probably highly unlikely. So might be Panarin or bust, or they're going to have to find a big name to trade for. But yeah, I think the one more note on Winnipeg real quick. They made a couple more depth trades. We don't need to talk about it, but they got Matt Hendricks and Nathan Boyou. So really cornering that 7th D-man, 13th forward market. So kind of some press box signings, but depth signings nonetheless for or depth trades, I should say, for Winnipeg. So yeah, I think we alluded to Mark Stone earlier. I think that's a trade everyone's kind of excited to talk about. We'll talk about Nyquist too, but maybe we'll start with Stone. I think boys are a little excited. Obviously, he was probably the biggest name available at this trade deadline. He's Ottawa's best player now that Karlsson had been traded. I think he's at 62 points through 59 games for a really bad team. Really good defensively. I don't know if a lot of people know that. I think he's a plus 20 on one of the worst teams in the league. Part of that's because he's pretty lethal offensively, but he's a really good defender. He's not going to get that recognition probably for playing defense, playing on the wing, because, the Selke is always going to go to a center. So he'll probably never get the recognition he deserves there. But just an all-around really good, complete player, 26 years old. Sounded like Calgary was trying to make a play for him. Nashville was in. Boston was in. The Islanders sound like Lou Lamoriello was in stealth mode trying to get him. What's that French kid's name? Bouleville or something? I think they were dangling him for Stone. And then, but Vegas gets it done, trading Brandstrom, who they took as one of their first picks in their inaugural draft in 2017. Also traded Oscar Lindbergh, but he's only got 4 goals this year. He's just a depth piece. And then a second-round pick and a few minutes. I mean, it must have been contingent on them giving up Brandstrom, but Stone has now already inked a 8-year extension at a $9.5 million AAV. So not only does Vegas acquire a bona fide top 6 winger, they've got him locked up, and really interesting for Vegas here because I think, as a two-way guy, he's a great fit for Gallant and that team. They're just a dogged team. They just fucking harass you with hard forecheck. They just grind you down, but they got skill at the same time. But Vegas has put themselves in a little bit of, I won't say like a predicament, but this was a team we were talking about, before the season. We said, wow, they've got a lot of really good prospects, and they've got, a lot of cap space. And this is a team that could probably be really good for a long time. And what they've chosen to do is trade a guy like Suzuki, to Montreal, and for the Pacioretty deal. They went and signed Paul Stastny. They extended Fleury. They've now given up Brandstrom and extended Stone. So a lot of the huge cap flexibility they have is pretty much gone, but they're going for it early. And I don't know if you can really blame them, but I think that's just a massive pickup. And as Dan said earlier, with Nashville and Winnipeg potentially playing in the second round is going to be complete war. Well, right now we're looking at, with the way Calgary's kind of pulling away right now, we might have San Jose and Vegas in the first round, which is going to be a fucking bloodbath. Like, holy shit. Like, those are maybe 2 of the 3 best teams in the West, arguably, and they're going to play each other in round 1. Byproduct of the new playoff format we've seen the last couple of years. But yeah, I think Vegas, huge fucking move. He's a perfect fit there, I think.
Yeah,
but really good in Vegas.
Yeah, I like the kind of balls to the wall, kind of strategy, like you're saying. Could be good for a while, but I like that they're kind of going for it now, trying to capitalize, off of the tremendous inaugural season they had, making it to the Cup final. Obviously, there are teams that haven't even made it to the Cup final in this century, and they made it in their first year. And you never know when you're going to get that chance to go back again. You look at a bunch of teams that have either gotten to their conference final or have gotten to a Cup final, and they haven't been there since. Just recent memory would be New Jersey and New York, both teams losing to LA. Vancouver's another great example, how they were filthy for all those years. President's Trophy winners in 2011, went to the Cup, lost. What was that game? Was it Game 7? Or Yeah, I think it was
They
game
got
7, right?
4-0 at home in
Yeah,
game
yeah.
2011.
So you never know when you're going to be able to make it back. I mean, Minnesota got into the league early. They went to the Western Conference Final in like 2002, and they even sniffed it since then. So long story short, what I'm trying to say is, I like the moves that they're making. Phillips, like he said, Stone, he's a big fucking dude, 6'4", about 220. He's just under a point per game player for his career. And yeah, you mentioned it, 62 points and a plus 13 on an absolute dog shit team this year. So that just speaks to his, when you see stats like that from a guy on a team that's kind of been struggling, that just shows you how good he really is. And now that he's going to a team that's actually got, a team that can game and will be definitely, be considered as a serious cup contender. That just shows you how good of a player he is, how much he'll benefit from playing in Vegas. And yeah, like I mentioned, his size, the West, I think in general is just a bigger, heavier sort of game than the East. The East is, maybe a little bit more speed, a little bit more skill, a little less size. And, he fits into that size part really well. Like I said, 6'4", so, he's not going to get bang around. And, he can bang too. He can hit. He can, go into corners. He can do all the dirty shit. Yeah, and on both sides of the puck, like you mentioned, Nick, so you pretty much hit the nail on the head with Stone. So good on Vegas. That's a hell of a move. And if I'm in the West, I'm a little nervous if I have to play Vegas, come playoff time.
So one of my immediate thoughts was like, so there's obvious the notion that Vegas last year they're all misfits, and that's part of the reason like they had playing with a little chip on their shoulder, outcast, blah blah blah. So people were saying, like, you can contribute that to most of their success, but they're just they're adding so many guys that just play really hard and fundamentally sound. They just play hockey the right way. And what I think McPhee's doing is he's added he has like 10 pieces that are going to be together for the next like 5 years at least. I think they have their top 4D locked up for the next 4 years. They have, now Stone, that have is Carlson, who's a restricted free agent at the end of this year. They're going to have enough space to lock him up. So, Gallant has like his group, and it's going to be the same group for the next, number of years. And once you have all these, they have a really good prospect pool coming up too. So you add them into the mix, they're going to be really hard to deal with for a long time because they're building this culture of just, really hard-nosed, tough, gritty hockey. And like I said, once you add these young guys and you add them to these already, proven, high-profile players, they're going to be hard to deal with for a really long time. So it's quite a scary look and thought as as a rival fan, not a rival fan, but an opposing. And so an incredible job. It's really tough to celebrate what he's done enough because it's been something special.
Yeah, Kevin, definitely. I mean, you look at that forward group now. When you talk about the skill, responsibility, two-way tenacity, I mean, you've got Marchessault, you've got Carlson, you've got Riley Smith, you've got Paul Stastny, you've got Max Pacioretty. I mean, you've got
Alex Tuck. I forgot about him.
Alex Tuck
last year.
Yeah, Alex Tuck, Mark Stone. I mean, that's fucking ridiculous. I mean, that's just their wing depth is just ridiculous, just absurd. And their D's, they work together well. Like, I don't think Vegas really has like a number 1 D necessarily, but they have a bunch of really solid like number 2, number 3 guys, and they all play together well in Gallant's system. And obviously, it's going to be goaltending. It's a theme on our podcast. We always talk about that. Always comes down to goaltending. But if Fleury can play anywhere near the level he was at last postseason, they're going to be an absolute wagon to deal with. I had alluded to the fact that them and San Jose are potential first round opponents. Another trade, I think it was the first trade that kind of kicked off Monday morning, was that absolute shit stain. Ken Holland, man should have retired 5 years ago. the game is completely passed this man by. Listen, I'm a Chicago Blackhawks fan. The Detroit Red Wings gave me nightmares growing up. You know, I'm tingly inside just seeing him cripple that franchise. But I got to say, if you're a Detroit Red Wing fan, like, you got to raise hell. You got to get this guy out of here. And I'm not saying Gustav Nyquist is anywhere near the quality of, like, you know, some other guys that got traded, like Duchesne and Stone and all this stuff. But Nyquist, he's on pace for 65 points this year. What the hell are you doing retaining 30% and only getting San Jose's second-round pick is going to be at the ass end of the second round. Like, they're a really good team. Like, that's going to be like mid-20s. Wouldn't y'all agree? And then third-round pick, I mean, for a guy that's pretty decent forward, like, I think San Jose, I mean, between that and buying low on Jonathan Dahlen, I think Doug Wilson had a pretty fucking sneaky day. I think he had a really good fucking day.
Yeah, I was just going to say savvy comes to mind with a move like that. You know, unless those picks end up being, you know, obviously we won't know until, you know, the draft. But, yeah, you got to be scratching your head as a Detroit fan. You know, that sort of franchise has been kind of fallen away from their glory days in the, you know, last decade or so. But, yeah, shit. Like, that's just like the cherry on top, I feel like, to kind of, you know, just not a great season, not a whole lot, you know. Stupid name for an arena. You got to play in that now, you know, and then, yeah, you trade away one of your better players for, you know, seemingly nothing. So,
Yeah, Little Caesars passed, to call it. I can't think of it. Athanasiou, right? When it was 2 off seasons ago when Ken Holland would like refuse to re-sign Andreas Athanasiou and then just got him on like a 1-year deal. I can't remember what happened since, but like this guy doesn't know what he's doing. Like the Red Wings, a once proud organization, you know, historic.
Just, I mean, you really hate to see this. You hate to see this.
It's a tough scene, as the kids call it. But I mean, as a Blackhawks fan, like I don't really relish in it because the rivalry has, you know, technically died off. It'll always be there, you know, in the back of our heads. But ever since they left our division, it's you know, it hasn't really been the same. But on San Jose's part, I want to say that they were looking at Gustav Nyquist at the deadline last year, right before they traded for Evander Kane instead. So I think they've had him on their radar for quite some time, and for good reason. He's a really tough player, good player. Like you said, he's having a pretty solid year production-wise. And just to go back to what you said earlier about how if they meet up with Vegas in the first round, that's like 2 really hard-nosed teams. You know, too early to think about that now, but like starting to get giddy about the playoffs now the deadline's passed is it's pretty exciting.
Yeah, boys. Yeah, Kevin, certainly agree there. One quick note I forgot to mention, we were talking about Minnesota's activity earlier. They also extended Eric Stahl. So another interesting move there. He's had a decent couple of years there. Yeah, obviously he kind of caught everyone's surprise last year with the goal scoring output. But were there any teams that were, I mean, obviously we're looking at these trades, you know, a lot of these guys haven't even played their first game yet with any of these teams. I mean, some guys are dealing with visa issues. It might be a couple of days. So, I mean, just gut reactions. I mean, are there any teams that you thought were winners or losers? I mean, I looked at Calgary and thought, man, like they could make a move, maybe try to get a goaltender or something. You know, you've got a really good offense, but I was hoping maybe they get like a goaltender, you know, for their sake. Or obviously, you know, they were in the Stone sweepstakes and was really surprised by Florida's inactivity. That's a team that's been rumored to just be like ready to just dump off a bunch of cap. And I mean, they traded Jukestad, you know, and then flipped Derek Brassard, who they got in that trade. But I mean, there were rumors they might move Hoffman and some other pieces, and that really didn't come to fruition. And then the LA Kings, who just absolutely stink, they did nothing. I mean, they're just trash and did nothing. I was really surprised there that they didn't pull something off. So Rob Blake.
Well, they traded to make Jake Muzzin a little while ago.
Oh yeah, that's true. Okay, yeah.
I guess in terms of deadline, that's false. But go on.
Yeah, I mean, there's still a few guys that I think they've got some guys they could have flipped for picks and such. And then, I was surprised at our hometown Blackhawks for not that I thought they were going to be buyers, or I didn't think they'd pony up for a guy with term unless they there was a imminent extension. But I think we've kind of talked about the John Haydens, Artem Anisimovs, Brandon Perlinis, Marcus Krugers. They've got a glut of defensive prospects and current guys on the NHL roster. I was surprised they didn't ship a couple guys out. Personally, there's some guys that aren't going to make or break a playoff push, or probably aren't going to be with the team in a couple years from now. And anyway, and I thought maybe they would flip a couple guys for some mid-round picks. So I was kind of surprised to see the Blackhawks not do anything. I thought they might make one or two trades for like a mid-round pick. They did nothing. But yeah, that's just my initial reaction. I don't know if you guys have anything that was surprising to you, if there was anyone that, you were surprised they were so active or so inactive, or thought they could have done more, should have done a little less. I don't know if anyone just wants to jump in with any general deadline thoughts.
Yeah, well, the one for me I don't think they did anything on the deadline, but the Dallas Stars, though, in acquiring Matt Zuccarello, I feel like that's one that we definitely have to talk about.
Good call, man. Good call.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate because Zuccarello came in. He actually played against the Hawks, and he had 2 points, and then he blocked a shot, and now he's out for probably 4 weeks. So that really kind of sucks for him. He's a player that I love to watch. He's obviously really small, but he's got a stick of I think his stick is as long as like a stick would be for a player that's like 6'2", 6'3". I actually played against a kid that had a similar sort of thing, small but huge stick, and it's actually really annoying to play against because he's got that reach for poke checks, and he's got a hell of a shot. He's a hell of a player. If the folks listening at home didn't know, so Dallas picked up Zuccarello, obviously, and then to the Rangers went a second-round pick in 2019, a third-round pick in 2020, but both picks are conditional. The 2020 pick goes from a third-rounder to a first-rounder if Zuccarello re-signs, and the 2019 pick also can go to a first-rounder if Dallas makes it to the Western Conference Final this year. I don't really see that happening. But, yeah, I mean, and the thing that sort of really got to me with this trade was the interview with Henrik Lundqvist, and they were asking him, kind of what his thoughts were, and he just kind of broke down crying, and it kind of shows you the character of both Zuccarello and of Lundqvist. Obviously, the two of them, I think they've been playing together for like 10, 11 years, something like that. Definitely a long time. Zook's been in the Rangers system for a while. Obviously, Lundqvist played his whole career there. But obviously, he's a hell of a teammate. If a guy like Lundqvist is sitting there and he can barely contain himself when he's talking about a former teammate. So obviously, a great locker room guy. I do hope, he heals up, even though he's, on a Central Division rival team. Like I said, I like the way he plays, so I hope he heals up quickly because he can really help out that Dallas squad with Jamie Benn and Tyler Seguin. And that's a team that's sort of gotten some shit, even from their own, the GM or the owner, when they said that his two best players stunk, which, was kind of shitty, but whatever. That's another story. But yeah, anyway, Zuccarello adds a lot to that lineup. So it'll be interesting to see what he does. Hopefully, like I said, he heals up quickly and he can get back in the lineup for them. So that's a big pickup for them, though.
And real quick, yeah, they picked up Alexiak and Cogliano too within the last couple weeks, month, whatever you want to call it. So yeah, Jim Nill obviously trying to instill, I should say, some belief in that locker room. And then Zuccarello obviously is a good player in the room and on the ice. So yeah, I think it's like a 4-week timeline. So if Dallas can hang on to that one of those spots, we'll see. And then before Kelvin goes, one more team, St. Louis has been really pushing the pace lately, and they've been having a hell of a run, hell of a streak here, and they kind of only went and got Michael Delzato. I was kind of thought maybe Doug Armstrong might make another move, but just decided to go with Delzato. I think they got a.
I feel like he almost Sorry, and I feel like you almost didn't do anything because they're just buzzing so much right now. You know, it's almost like you don't want to upset the delicate balance that is that team right now. You know, they were early on, you know, when the Hawks were struggling too. You know, it was kind of one of those things for me. Like, I really don't like the Blues. Sorry, St. Louis fans. But, you know, it was one of those things where they were struggling so much that, you know, even when the Hawks were struggling, I could at least kind of laugh and be like, well, the Blues fucking suck. And then they just turned it on, and they are fucking good. They roll all four lines. Their defense is hard to beat. They've actually got a good goalie, which has kind of been like the main thing that's been ailing them the last, you know, 6 or 7 years. So I feel like he almost didn't do anything because they're just on such a streak right now. They're on a roll. It would almost be like, you know, why would you want to do, even if you could get somebody really good, it's almost like they're just doing so well right now. Why would you do anything to kind of upset that, I guess, delicate balance, like I said? So that's just kind of my thoughts. I don't know if I'm right, but anyway.
Thursday, the season, the off season. So I feel like that's, you know, probably where they focus most of their resources in getting better and improving. But I think the team is disappointing relatively. You know, they've maintained most of their talent players, but they haven't been able to put it together. This year, they've just been, you know, kind of on, I don't know, relative to, you know, this I think should have capitalized and maybe tried to get impact. To say they didn't try, but then it's a failure. I add another player to kind of put the level. You know, this is where you like up. That was disappointing for me.
Definitely, boys. I think we're getting close here to wrapping up. I don't know if we have any final thoughts or anything, but I want to let everybody know that y'all can follow Go With The Flow on Twitter at GWTF Podcast _. It's GWTF Podcast _. And then Go With The Flow -NHL Podcast. You can find that on iTunes and now Spotify. Just want to let everyone know that in case we have any first-time listeners, just checking out our deadline analysis here. Or you know, thanks to any of our longtime listeners who are tuning in once again. But if anyone has any closing thoughts, I think we've kind of covered most of the big trades. But if anyone wants to get any final words in before we shut this program down for this week, I don't know if y'all got anything, but yeah, interesting day, I think, overall. But a few teams that think made themselves a lot better here for a cup run, playoff push. But I mean, just like any deadline, there's going to be some disappointed fan bases, and that's from contending teams and bad teams. You know, there's both sides of the coin where you don't feel like you've done enough because you haven't set up your future as well as you could have today, or you didn't maybe go all in as much as you could have. But you know what? Sometimes the best moves are the ones you don't make, and I think Columbus might find that out real soon.
Yeah, it's going to be a tough scene. Don't want to overuse that term, but Jesus Christ, it's like they're really fucked. It's going to be funny.
I'm not trying to be funny, but I don't think Columbus has ever won a playoff run. So I mean,
no,
they've never won a playoff run, right?
No,
so,
they've lost
in recent memory. They've games in a series.
Yeah, they've lost 2, I think, to Pittsburgh, and then one to the Caps. Yeah, I think they won 2 all three times. They lost 4 games to 2 each one.
It is of my humble opinion that if you don't win the Stanley Cup this year, not getting a haul for Panarin and/or Bobrovsky is just a colossal mistake.
Yeah, that fucking sucks.
So they better somehow upset everybody. Like, imagine not trading Panarin or Bobrovsky because you think you can just roll through Tampa or something. That's just blind optimism.
I don't see how anyone's gonna fucking beat Tampa. They are just the way that they are playing. Unless they somehow fall off the wagon, they're fucking unbelievable.
That's it. It's, I mean, it's a more extreme version because they've been playing at the level St. Louis has been playing right now, basically the whole season, but they didn't really, I mean, they got 98 points right now, and we've got, 18, 20 games to go, depending on what team you are. So, I mean, that's a case where I think Brisebois, the GM, had a quote today, and he said, we could have gotten deeper, but I don't know if we could have gotten better. Like, they would have just been giving up assets to add more depth. They necessarily not, the 13 or the 12 forwards, 6D, and the goalie they put on the ice. He didn't really think they could have improved that today with the realistic trade option. So he basically just left all hell alone. Didn't even think they needed an upgrade. And I mean, obviously nothing's guaranteed in the playoffs, but I mean, will they look back and say, "Oh, we wish we would have made a bigger play for a Wayne Simmons or something"? I don't know if that's going to be the difference for Tampa going to a cup or winning a cup or not. But they're the cream of the crop right now in the league, and they didn't do anything. So I thought that was interesting too. So, all right, boys, thank you for joining tonight, and looking forward to talking to y'all next week. Obviously, try to get some blogs up this week. Catch us at LMBF Sports. That's our Twitter handle. Let me be Frank blog.com. That's let me be, just the letter B, Frank blog.com. So, boys, Kevin, Dano, thanks again as always, and thanks for recapping tonight and for today, past week or so too. And I will hop on here with you guys next week. Thanks again.
See you later, fellers.
Later.
Peace.